Hey, what is up guys? Jay Burton here, and today I'm doing a video on Resto Druid PvP patch 7.0.3. I'm mainly going to talk about the changes to Resto Druid, and then the current talents I'm using for PvP. I'll do a much more in-depth guide whenever Legion actually comes out and we have our artifact weapons and honor talent trees. Before I begin, if you do hear a humming, that is my air conditioner. It's super hot outside. I apologize. Please don't let it distract you. Okay, let's get into it. Keep pushing the wrong button. There we go. Okay. So, mastery starting off. Your healing is increased by a percentage for each hot you have on the target. The more hots you have, the more healing you do to that target. I love this change. It's much better than, well, actually, I don't know. The last mastery for WD wasn't bad. Like, whenever you do a direct heal, you increase your healer time effects on everybody, but this one seems much more fun. Downside is if there's a purge happy team, you can't really benefit much from your mastery. Another thing, we have Ursul's Vortex by default now. That's so cool. You know, that talent that nobody ever picked under very certain situations. Now you just have it anyways. So, you know, there's an arms wear on you, and you're like, bro, get off me. You drop your Ursul's Vortex down, and then Displacer Beast teleport away. Warrior's like, oh, I'm going to charge you. He gets pulled right back. That's great. 1 minute cooldown, not a bad ability. I'm glad we have it. And another thing is we by default have Ysera's Gift now. You don't have to talent for it. It's a little bit weaker, but still pretty nice. Healing Touch costs much less mana and has a shorter cast time. Still not really actually usable when like you're trying to get somebody up because they're low on health. But if you find yourself where you're LOS'd on a pillar, nobody's hitting you, this is probably the most efficient way to heal up. And Efflorescence, you know, it's like our wild mushroom. It can't be targeted. You can't kill it, so it's nice. It's a really good ability to use. Then we also have Sunfire now. It's just like the Moonfire buff or debuff. They both do some pretty decent damage, and that's pretty much it on the changes. Now let's get into the talent tree here. So in the top tier, I think you really just have to go Prosperity, because Swift Mend is just amazing by itself, and getting 2 charges and reducing the cooldown by 5 seconds is awesome. And this really couples well with Soul of Forest. I am not a fan of Tree of Life unless I'm doing a 2v2 or in a 3v3 situation versus triple DPS, which should never happen above, you know, like 1500 rating. But anyways, I love Prosperity. But Cenarian Ward is a little bit better because it can't be dispelled anymore. It's no longer a magic buff. And it benefits from your mastery. You know how I just said the more hots you have on a target, the more healing you do? Well, this adds an additional hot to the target, so you do more healing. In Abundance, this is really only good for PvE, where you actually have a lot of people to put hots on. Maybe you could use this on... No, I would still go Prosperity in RBGs. Definitely PvE talent. Now, in the 30 tier, Renewal is still bad. The only time I ever even used this ability was in Mist of Pandaria, when you could go in bearform and pop Might of Urzac and get a huge amount of health, and you'd really benefit from this. Not anymore. Displacer Beast is still the same. You know, you teleport 20 yards away, activating cat form, and you get movement speed increase. Still a really solid ability. But Wild Charge is actually better now than what it was in WoD. The reason why is a lot of classes got many of their get out of roots and slows and things abilities. So a lot of melee will be just sitting in roots, not being able to get out. So any form of rooting is really good. So Wild Charge is much better than what it used to be. Plus, there's a lot of different ways you can use it. You can use it to teleport to a teammate, jump behind an enemy, charge an enemy and root them. There's a lot you can do with it. So it's a much more versatile ability. However, most of the time I still will go Displacer Beast, but don't completely, you know, take Wild Charge out of the equation. If you're versing double melee, most likely when you get away with Displacer Beast, they're going to be able to get back on you. Warrior's Charge, Heroic Leap, Unholy DKs have 2 death grips now, so Wild Charge might be the better option versus those situations. And in the 45 tier, our Affinity tier, this is so cool. I love this change. So you can either specialize being a caster, DPS, you know, cat DPS, or bear tank. So Bounce Affinity, a passive, you get 5 yards increase on all your abilities. Pretty cool. You get Moonkin form and some good damaging abilities. This actually does some pretty solid damage. Downside is most likely in PvP, you're not going to be able to sit in Moonkin form and just recast damage spells. Not going to happen. Unless you're running maybe a form of RMD, assuming it's still gonna be really good. You know, there's a lot of CC anyways, so you'll have time where you can actually do DPS. I would still probably go with Feral Affinity though if I was gonna have a DPS role. So Feral Affinity, you're not casting spells. You are getting in their face, you know, because you're a cat, but you do a lot of damage, especially your bleeds. You know, your shred or your rake and your rip. Lots and lots of damage right there. And you get a passive 15% movement speed increase. But the best one, by far for PvP, is Guardian Affinity. This ability is, oh, it's so good. So passively, you take 10% less damage. That's already good. Right there, I'm fine. I'm sold. I'm picking that one. But you also get some pretty cool bearform abilities. Please note, whenever you go bearform, you will automatically get 20 rage. You think about that. Automatically 20 rage. Frenzied Regeneration. You get this ability and it got reworked. It's really good. It costs 10 rage. You get 2 charges, 20-second recharge rate. But check this out. Heals you for 50% of all the damage you've taken in the last 5 seconds. Over 3 seconds as a hot. I just want to repeat that. Heals you for 50% of all the damage you took in the last 5 seconds. As a 3-second hot. That is so good. Only costs 10 rage. Honestly, if you're getting trained, you want to try to have these both charges on cooldown nonstop. That's such a good ability. It saves you mana too, by the way. And if you're able to get rage built up, like versus double melee, this ability is insane. It costs 45 rage, that's the only downside, but increases your armor by 75% for 6 seconds. If you're versing double melee, you're going to get tickled. But 45 rage is actually kind of hard to come by. Now, right when you go in bear form, you get 20 rage, but Mangle only generates 6 rage and has a 6-second cooldown. Well, mine's showing 5.1. And the Thrash only generates 4 rage, so it's kind of hard to really get that rage built up. So it takes a little bit to get Iron Fur. But Frenzied Regeneration is the absolute amazing ability you should be using. Now, when that's on cooldown and you have extra rage, yeah, Iron Fur is pretty good. So anyways, it's so fun. You're spending a lot more time in bear form, so it feels like Resto Druid in Burning Crusade. In case you guys haven't got to play Resto Druid in Burning Crusade, it was the most fun playstyle I've ever had for Resto Druid, hands down. Alright, now let's go on to the 60 tier. Mighty Bash is still the same. The only time I wouldn't like it is, I guess, if I'm running TSG, you know, or some type of comp that has a lot of stuns already. Mass Entanglement's pretty good too. Remember how I told you root's gonna be a lot more important? So you can double root melee. It's pretty nice. Typhoon I would only take if you're on, you know, bridge maps or somewhere where you can knock people off the map. Most of the time I'll probably still take Mighty Bash though. 75 tier, I think Soul of Force is an absolute must. When you cast Swift Mend, you increase the healing of your next regrowth or rejuvenation by 200%. 200%. And remember, we're going to have 2 charges of Swift Mend. It's so good. Now, Tree of Life, once again, if I'm doing 2s and I'm versing a double melee comp, no, or not double melee, but, you know, double DPS, I might go Tree of Life. It depends on what they are. I just don't like it. It lasts for 30 seconds and a 3-minute cooldown. So when it's on cooldown, that sucks. That sucks. Cultivation is actually kind of cool too. When you use Rejuvenation on target below 60% health, you'll apply Cultivation, which is another hot. Remember, the more hots you have on a target, the more healing you do to that target. So you can like, if you're not going to go with Prosperity for double Swift Mend, you can go Cenarian Ward for an additional hot, and swap out Soul Force for Cultivation for an additional hot. So you can just get lots of hots. So you're doing lots of extra healing to a target. Now I wouldn't really ever do that, but I'm just saying it's an option. 99% of the time, probably even more than that, 99.9% of the time, I'll go Soul of the Forest. Now in the 90 tier, Spring Blossoms, this makes your Efflorescence, which is actually kind of cool. Hold on 1 second. So your Efflorescence, it's kind of a hot. It's not, you know, it's not really hot, but if you're staying in it, you know, you're getting heal over time. But when you do spec for Spring Blossoms, it's an additional hot. So it's also proccing your mastery even more. But Germination also does the same thing, because, you know, you're getting an extra hot. And it's another rejuvenation. So the only time I would take Spring Blossoms is maybe in PvE. Inner Peace is absolutely terrible because Tranquility just doesn't really do that much healing. Used to, you could pop this and just really boost everybody up. Now 26k is still not bad, but it used to be stronger. Germination's the way to go. An extra Rejuvenation, cannot go wrong with that. Okay, so last tier. Stonebark for PvP, in my opinion, is just the absolute go-to. Reduce the cooldown of Ironbark by 30 seconds. So at first when I read this, when I saw these changes, I was like, nice, we're gonna have a 30-second cooldown on Ironbark? Oh man. And then I was like, oh, they nerfed the cooldown. So now it's 1.5 minutes, unless you take this PvP talent. Still, having it on 1 minute cooldown is very important, and increase heal over time on that target who has Ironbark. Because remember, you can still cast Ironbark on teammates, so it'll make them take more healing from your HOTS. Moment of Clarity, it's kind of cool, because instead of just being wasted on one rejuvenate or one regrowth, it would be on 3 regrowths. That's kind of cool. Not for PvP, in my opinion. And Flourish, I love the idea of this ability. Extend the duration of all your HOTS on a target by 6 seconds. The downside is it's a 1 minute cooldown. I can't even see us being good in PvE for a 1 minute cooldown. Now change that to a 30-second cooldown. I don't know. I still might go Stonebark. I just think 1 minute cooldown's way too long for that ability. It's a cool idea though. Okay, so these are pretty much the abilities here that I'm going to use most of the time. Like I said, Wild Charge I might swap out if I'm versing a double melee, where the roots would be really good, along with Mass Entanglement. Mighty Bash is great for your team if nobody has any stuns. Plus, we no longer have the Ursul's Roar, I forgot whatever that was called. It was in the same tier as Mighty Bash in WOD, where it would disorientate everybody around you, which gave you time to get your Cyclone off. But things are different now, so I'd probably just go Mighty Bash. And I think I covered everything. Alright guys, like I said, as soon as Legion comes out and we get all of our artifact weapon stuff and on our PvP talent tree, I'll be doing a much more in-depth guide. Alright guys, thank you for watching.